Hello, John Browning. I hope your week is going well, sir.
It is. It's going well so far. It hasn't been that long, so we're still wondering how the rest of the week's going to go, but we're optimistic.
Well, that's the way to be, is optimistic. I'm pretty optimistic. As everybody always asks me, is the glass half full or glass half empty? I'm like, well, it's half full, right? Then I just go pour more stuff in. Now it's flowing over because that's how we should be. But that's neither here nor there. I've had some thoughts recently, John, and I figured you might have the answers to these. So I wanted to throw this out here today on your podcast is,
okay.
If there were a way to tell which was most important or maybe more important, one or the other, is it more important the type of investing account that I have and set up, or is it more important of how my money is invested? Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. And it's, in some cases, it could be a bit of a toss-up. How the money is invested is obviously extremely, extremely important. And that's what most people focus on. But I'll tell you, and this actually is it's interesting that you asked that question, because just recently, over the last month and a half, I've run into a gentleman who his wife unfortunately passed away. Super nice guy, but she had kind of always handled the finances of the relationship, and he didn't even know how the account was titled. And when we looked into it, it turned out it was titled in a little bit, we'll just say different way, and that can make a big difference when you have that happen. If there's you and a significant other, or even if it's just you, if you haven't titled the account right, or it's not in the right vehicle type of account, it can create real problems, headaches, etc., tax implications for the people who are then settling your estate, or maybe depending on you to have set things up correctly. And there's a plethora of different ways to title accounts, whether it's retirement accounts or just an individual account. Is it a transfer on death account? Is it a joint rights and privilege? Is it a joint tenants? And it goes on and on and on. Different ways you can do it.
It is. Well, as you know, I'm helping a recent widow lady walk through stuff, right? And we found some accounts so some are in his name, some are in her name, some are in his and or her name, and some are in his and her name joint tenants with something. And I'm like, oh my, I had no idea, John. So totally and then going through all the paperwork to get them all turned over to her and all this, but I'm learning exactly what you're talking about now, just about how do you title it? And it does make a difference.
Yeah, it does.
But too many times when we set things up, we're like, well, I don't know, just like this. It's, it's kind of like a car.
Make a difference.
Yeah. You buy a car and you put it in Michael or Michael and Jill DeLon. Well, we both have to be there. If it's Michael or Jill DeLon, right? Little things like that make a big difference, right, especially during the time of grieving after you've lost a spouse or something. You don't want to deal with that stuff. But we digress. But I mean, that's one aspect of types of accounts and how money's invested in things. But is there it's probably a both and, isn't it? It's not like this one's more important because I assume it has to deal with the situation of each individual, but it's kind of well, they're both really, really important. The type of account that you have, how it's titled and all that, but also where that money's invested, right?
Yeah, I would say if you really push me against the wall and said you got to answer this question, it would certainly be how the money is invested is the most important. But I don't want to minimize how important it can be to set up the right type of account. The other example of this is I talk to many people who don't even know, say that they could have, a Roth IRA versus a regular IRA, or business owners. Business owners have a lot more that they can do with their retirement accounts, and there's a lot more things that they can take advantage of, but many times they're just not aware of it, and nobody has taken the time to tell them, or they haven't gone and gotten the advice that they need on this, and they miss out on thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And over a period of time, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars that they've missed out on in terms of building up accounts, and certainly in terms of the taxability of those accounts as they get into retirement.
Yeah. Well, and it's why, I mean, I say this probably on every podcast, John, but it's why people need to reach out and talk to you, because you're right. There's just a slew of opportunities, options, and confusion for people like me to go, wow, so I'm a self-employed guy. Do I have an SEP or a TSA or a TF? I don't know, right? Because it's just, it's gobbledygook. Right. But you get it. You get it because it's what you do all day, every day, right? And that's why people need to reach out to you and start planning. I guess that's the word for the month, is planning and doing what you really don't want to do. But when they reach out to you, you make it a lot easier, right? Because
my job is to make things easier. I don't make the decisions for you, but I at least make you aware, and so that you can make the best decisions for you and building your best life.
Yeah, very much so. I'm working with this widow lady, right? And she's got two daughters, and they're getting a portion of the guy's life insurance. And I'm getting ready to have the conversation with these, they're 20 and 22. And they're going in here at like, I don't know, 50 grand each or something. I'm like, they don't have a clue what to do with that money. So we're going to have discussions, because it's not my decision, but I need to be their advisor to go, here's some options. Here's some things you need to be thinking about, right? That's kind of the role you play, right? Is you're that advisor. You're pulling everything together to go, based on what you have told me, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here are 2 or 3 options that's going to help you build the life that you want through a portfolio of what makes sense in your life. Close?
Yes, that is close. That's right.
Yeah. And we just, there's so many options based on each individual's situation, because not everybody's a business owner. Don't have to be. You can work for a company. You could work for a company that has a pension plan, like we talked about on the last episode. If you missed that one, by the way, you need to go listen to it, because most of us don't have pensions, and John helped us understand a personal paycheck protection plan. So go listen to that one. But even if you had a pension and Social Security, you're still going to need more than that probably. And so you need to set these things up and understand, how do you do this? And I think you even do have some people on staff, attorneys and things, to help with estate planning, if your client needs estate planning to transfer wealth most efficiently when that day comes. Right?
Yep. We've got a team, whether it's estate planning, whether it's tax planning. We don't give tax advice, but we work with people that have that expertise very specifically. And one of the things you said sparked another memory, and it's something that we run into all the time, because people, again, just don't, this is not what they think about, right? Yeah. And they'll come to me in retirement, right, when some things it's almost too late, but it's never too late. I always tell people it's never too late to make a big difference in how your life is built in retirement. Right. But they'll come to me and they have 401ks, like in 4, 5, 6 different companies, and they've never consolidated them. And I will tell you that 2 things. Number one, a 401k plan has, generally speaking, good options, but not great options. So that's number one. Number two, if you have gone 5, 10, even a couple years and haven't consolidated that 401k, it can be really difficult to figure out who you're supposed to call, what form you're supposed to fill out from 10 years ago at XYZ company, and to get that consolidated into some place where you can control it and you can deal with it and even withdraw some of that money. It can be really difficult and a pain in the rear end to figure out. So if I leave you with nothing else today on the podcast, as you exit one job and go to another job, get that 401k, put it into something like an IRA, individual retirement account, or maybe a Roth. Call me, we'll talk about it. Talking with me is absolutely free. I'm happy to chat with anyone. So try and keep that in mind as you go through your pre-retirement years. Things that you do now really make a difference.
Well, it does. And that's a fascinating topic that we're going to have to come back on another show to talk about is as you move companies, because back in my grandpa's day, and we talked about him on the last episode, the last podcast, he was a state police officer and he was there for a long time, right? The widow lady, right, that I'm working with now, her husband worked at a company, big company, for 40 years. Okay. John, people don't do that anymore. They move from company to company every 2 or 3 years. So the younger generation, or even the middle-aged generation, they probably are going to have multiple 401k sponsored, company sponsored 401ks or whatever, that as they move, they need that counsel to move that money with them. We need to do a whole episode just on that concept of why is that important and what would you do with it? I think that'd be a fascinating episode.
Yeah, I would say, we'll have to do that. And we'll talk at the same time, we'll talk about what to do with your 401k now. Because that's another question, because when you're with a 401k, the company, generally speaking, doesn't have any real incentive to give you any advice on that. And neither does somebody like myself, because you generally don't, charge on assets that are in a 401k plan. But, something that we do is we always take with our clients, we say, what have you got in your 401k plan? How do you have it invested? Okay, why don't we do this with it? And so we can get, even when you're in that 401k, the good, not great options can be reconfigured to work with your existing portfolio outside of that. And that's a whole nother topic, like you said. Yeah.
I love it. All right. So those are two 401k. So it's going to be an 802 month next month. I'm sorry. That's two 401ks. But I think it's really important because people they don't think about this. And there are some tax implications as well. That's that right. Can come into play when you start taking distributions, but you can move it from one place to another if you don't take the money and it doesn't cost. I mean, there are so many little things that people just don't get, John, that I think you could just really explain in a few podcasts. So we're going to take a few coming up, and we're just going to talk about the 401k and the Roth and what's the difference. So that's another one of it's going to be fun. Because I love this. This is really cool. I learn every time I talk to you. And today, last time we talked about the personal paycheck protection plan, because a lot of people don't have pensions anymore. So you need to set up your own, and John has a way to do that. Today, we've talked about the difference between the type of account that you have and how it's titled versus where that money's invested and which is more important. And you landed on one side, even though it's kind of a both and, they're both really critical.
Right.
And in the future, we're going to talk about 401ks and just a wealth of things around that. So between now and then, John, let me encourage people to reach out to you, guardianrockwealth.com. I know you've got a new free report there. They can go to the contact page and ask for this new free report on the 8 misconceptions or misunderstandings of retirement. You can send that to somebody absolutely free.
Right.
They can request a copy of your book, Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. It's an Amazon best-selling book. They can reach out and just have a conversation with you about this or 1,000 other financial things, because you don't just talk about retirement. You can help people build wealth at a younger age. You can help people plan for retirement. You can help people in retirement. John takes them from cradle to grave. How about that?
I got to tell you, this is so much fun. I'm so excited. A client of mine just called me today, and his daughter was in the background, and I said hello. We have a very real small account that she's involved with, and she said, well, I've earned some money over the summer, and I just graduated high school. I'd really like to invest what I earned. And I was like, am I in the twilight zone? Because most young adults in that age group don't even think this way. And she said, well, my thinking was, since I'm going to take out some loans and they don't charge interest till I graduate, that I would invest whatever I was going to put to it. So her time horizon is, 4 or 5 years. Sure. But she's young and she's already planning and doing this. Oh, I'm so excited. So I'm excited to work with her. So yeah, like you said, you don't have to be really old to work with me. I work with people all the way down to, I think my youngest client, well, she's going to be my youngest client. She's 18. Okay. But other than that, my youngest client is 22 years old. Yeah. So I work with them all, and I absolutely love working with the younger clients as they're getting started.
Yeah, yeah. What a difference you can make in somebody's life when they start
Oh,
young,
yeah.
they start understanding these things. So, regardless of your age, go to guardianrockwealth.com, reach out to John, request some information, schedule a call with him, and see how he can help you navigate the entire financial world, because he is definitely an expert and a wealth of knowledge and just a great guy. So, John, thanks for spending some time again today. It's always fun to be with you, buddy.
All right. I enjoyed it. We'll see you.